3-mile ultra-restricted zone above the White House, the Capitol, and the Pentagon. The Pentagon is only a few miles from Andrews Air Force Base, which has at least 3 squadrons with fighter jets on alert at all times. The claim by the 9/11 Commission report that no fighters were on alert the morning of 9/11 is wholly implausible, as I have explained in my book on this subject. The Pentagon, moreover, is reportedly protected by batteries of surface-to-air missiles. So if any aircraft without a U.S. military's transponder were to enter the Pentagon's airspace, it would be shot down. So even if the aircraft that hit the Pentagon was Flight 77, it could have succeeded only because officials in the Pentagon turned off their missiles, as well as ordering the fighters from Andrews to stand down. A third major problem with the official story is that there is considerable evidence it could not have been Flight 77 because it was not a Boeing 757. For one thing, the strike on the Pentagon, unlike the strikes on the Twin Towers, did not create a detectable seismic signal. Also, according to several witnesses and many people who have studied the available photographs, both the damage and the debris were inconsistent with a strike by a large airliner. That issue, however, is too complex to discuss here, as is the issue of what should be inferred from conflicting eyewitness testimony. Deferring those topics to another time, I will conclude by pointing out that the suspicion that the Pentagon was not struck by a 757, as the government claims, is supported by the fact that evidence was destroyed. Shortly after the strike, government agents picked up debris and carried it off. Shortly thereafter, the entire lawn was covered with dirt and gravel, so that any remaining forensic evidence was literally covered up. Also, the videos from security cameras on the nearby Citgo gas station and Sheraton Hotel, which would show what really hit the Pentagon, were immediately confiscated by agents of the FBI, and the Department of Justice has to this day refused to release them. If these videos would prove that the Pentagon was really hit by a 757, most of us would assume the government would release them. To conclude, it would seem for many reasons that the official story of 9/11, which has served as a religious myth in the intervening years, is a myth in the pejorative sense of a story that does not correspond with reality. One sign that a story is a myth in this sense, I have pointed out, is that it cannot be rationally defended. The official story has never been publicly defended by any member of NIST or of the 9/11 Commission or of the Bush administration. After Charlie Sheen had made public his skepticism about the official story, CNN's Showbiz Tonight wanted to have a debate about the points he had raised between a representative of the government and a representative of 911truth.org. But the producers reportedly could find no member of the government willing to appear on the show. In this unwillingness of the government to appear on an entertainment show to answer questions raised by an actor, we would seem to have the clearest possible sign that the government's story is myth, not reality. If so, we must demand that the government immediately cease implementing the policies that have been warranted by the official account of 9/11. When charges were brought recently against members of Duke University's lacrosse team, the president of the university immediately canceled all future games until the truth of the charges could be decided. But surely, as serious as the charges against some members of this team are, the charges against the official story of 9/11 are far more serious. For this story, serving as a national religious myth, has been used to justify 2 wars, which have cost many tens of thousands of deaths, to start a more general war on radical Islam, in which Muslims around the world are now considered guilty until proven innocent, to annul and violate civil rights, and to increase our military spending, which was already greater than all the spending of the rest of the world together, and yet now we've increased it by several more billions of dollars. Much of this being used to put weapons in space. Congress needs to put the implementation of these policies on hold until there is a truly independent investigation carried out by qualified individuals who are not members of the very circles that, if 9/11 truly was a false flag operation, planned it, carried it out, and then covered it up. Thank you very much for your attention.
Several questions, in fact, related to your own safety. How concerned are you?
Not, because either they're going to take me out or leave me alone. If they leave me alone, I get to enjoy my old age and write my systematic theology. If they take me out, my 9/11 books go to the #1 spot on the head. So it's a win-win situation.
Do you think you're being monitored, asks one questioner? Do you think we have some FBI agents in the room?
Gosh, I hope so. Because I've been told that there are many people inside who would like to tell their story. But they know it'll be very dangerous for them if they do, and certainly if they let anybody know in advance that they are going to. But what we're faced here with is so humongous. I mean, the very future, not only of our country, but of our planet is at stake. So I would appeal to some people within the military, within the FBI, within any branch of government who knows the truth and can really be a whistleblower, to come forward, take the risk, even at the risk of your own life, for the good of the world.
One questioner says, it still seems difficult for me to believe that the members of the 9/11 Commission, Democrats included, could be so managed by one person so as to hide all this evidence. How could that happen here?
These people were carefully selected. Lee Hamilton, for example, had experience on previous investigations. And I'm not an expert on this, but you might bring Peter Dale Scott to talk about this and the role that Hamilton played in the Iran-Contra investigation. And again, in my second book, the 9/11 Commission Report, Omissions and Distortions, in the final section, I discussed the various conflicts of interest that were in the commission. And furthermore, remember, the commissioners you saw on TV, they didn't do the work of the commission. The staff of about 80 that Zelikow ran did the work. And Zelikow, as I say, decided which topics were worth investigating. So, for example, when Jamie Gorelick was asked, why didn't you talk about the war games? She said, we were told those weren't important, so we didn't look into them. Can you imagine how many things they were told were not important? There was no investigation at all of any of the aspects of the story that of any of the evidence that contradicts the official story. Commission did not say, okay, what's the most plausible theory of what happened? They just accepted the official story and looked at evidence relevant to that. They didn't even raise the question of this alternative scenario and ask what kind of evidence there was for that. You know, people say, look at what a scholarly book. Look at all those notes in the back. You can go through all those notes. The first sign of a work of scholarship is a review of the relevant evidence. You will not find my books or any other critics of the 9/11 official story are books or articles or websites mentioned in there. It's a total blackout of all contrary information.
Solicitor General Olson's wife was on the plane that hit the Pentagon.
Do we know that? We all assumed, we were all taught, of course, Barbara Olson was on there because she made a cell phone or an airphone call to her